Hi, my name is Tawheed, and I'm a fourth-year medical student in New York City. And in this video, I'm going to talk to you about 5 things I wish I knew before starting medical school. But first, there are a few things that I should probably explain. What is this channel, and why are you watching a dude ride his motorcycle? The answer to that is because this is a motovlog. A motovlog is essentially like every other vlog, but it's a dude riding a motorcycle, hence motovlog. Unlike other motovlogs, I'm going to be talking about medical school, getting in, what a day is like, what residency is like, hopefully. And in addition to that, I think I also plan to cover public policy stuff. Things like the American election, which is right around the corner, and also some of the debates that will be happening. Anyway, it should be fun, and I hope you stick around. Without much further ado, let's go on to number 1. Grades don't matter. Wait, just 1 second. Let's take a step back before we go into this. How does med school break down? Well, the typical med school has 2 years of preclinical going over things like anatomy, biochem, pathology, the very classic in-lecture kinds of courses. And then the second 2 years are when you're in the hospital and you're doing rotations on surgery, medicine, emergency medicine sometimes, psychiatry, etc., when you're actually with patients. The first 2 years of medical school and my institution, it was pass-fail. That meant there was no ranking system. The grades that you got were a percentage, sure, but none of that went onto your record. The only things that residencies or other people who want to look at your grades, they'd only be able to see whether you passed or failed. And that was more or less it for the first 2 years of medical school. And that did a couple of things. It created an environment that allowed people to be more cohesive, and everyone kind of worked together. Rotations start in your 3rd year of medical school. Here, it's a bit different. At my institution, the grading system shifts from pass-fail, which you had for the first 2 years, to honors, high pass, pass, and fail. I think there might be something in between, but I forget. It's essentially like an A, B, C, D, F grade. And here, during the clinical rotations, our grades were dependent on a couple of things. One was a written component, just usually like a write-up or some kind of presentation, something like that. 2, how you were on the floors. And this was very dependent on your team. Whether your team liked you, whether your team noticed you go the extra mile, and how good you were compared to the other medical student that was on the team. That definitely mattered a lot. And number 3, the shelf exam. The shelf exam is an exam that's administered by the National Board of Medical Education, and what they do is they have a standardized exam at the end of every rotation. Most institutions use this as their test, basically, at the end of whatever rotation you're on. So for example, if you're on surgery, you'll be on the rotation on the floors, doing your thing for about 8 weeks or so. And then at the end of it, you'll take an exam. And that accounts for the other 1/3 of your score. While on the topic of grades, let's talk about studying. Number 2, studying is different in medical school. When I was an undergrad, I was challenged, but I was never challenged to the point where I needed to make a dramatic change in my study habits. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I kind of crammed the night before for every exam. That doesn't work too well in medical school. And I'm sure if you watched any videos in medical school, or you had the misfortune of letting a medical student whine about how hard it is, you've heard of the expression, med school is like drinking from a fire hydrant. And that's kind of true. There is a lot of information out there, and cramming doesn't work. So what's the right way? I actually took the first 2.5 years to try to figure out an answer to that question, and I still don't know if I have the right one. So here's the thing. If you're a pre-med student listening to this, what I would do is I would take my college undergrad experience and try to figure out what are sustainable study habits that work for me. For example, do you study really well with images? Are you more of a visual person? Well, if that's the case, then Mnemonics or Sketchy Medicine would work for you. And these are two different companies that have a similar product where it's visual mnemonics that they developed into stories or whatever to help the medical information stick. They're usually very comprehensive, but they also take a lot of time and pretty costly. Oh yeah, and the links to any of this stuff I'll put down in the description. Or, okay, let's say you're not a visual person, you need something that's more of a repetition-based system. Well, for you, there's Anki. Anki is a spaced repetition-based software that people have used for quite some time to learn different languages, but more so recently in the last, I think, like 5 or 6 years, it's become very popular in medical school. Essentially, what students are doing is they take notes from a review book or from some other resource, categorize them into bite-sized flashcards, and then basically keep doing them over the course of the year. A lot of my classmates who are MS1s and MS2s kind of swear by this, especially for studying for Step 1. Or do you just need to do questions? If you haven't heard of UWorld already, you definitely will. It's the gold standard for Step 1 studying and Step 2 studying and even Step 3 studying. It's what all medical students use, and you'll be using it, and you as a medical student will definitely be using it too. There's UWorld, and there are other question banks like Amboss and whatnot. But yeah, that is another tool for you to use if you like to do a lot of questions. Number 3, culture. The culture in medical school is very interesting. It's kind of reminiscent of high school. You have the MS1s, the first year medical students, and they're kind of like the freshmen, the babies, the doe-eyed little people who are just so excited to have gone to medical school. They all travel in flocks in the first few months. They're all gonna go to the gym together. They're all gonna go to the deli around the corner together. They're all gonna go drinking together. But yeah, that's first year. The second year is when you kind of think you know what you're doing, but you really don't. And it starts to really pick up the pace. You're like, oh, okay, this is getting a little tiring. Third year, you don't really even see them. You don't see third year medical students on campus because they're always in the hospital and they're always slaving away, just being a fly on the wall and trying to pretend like they know what they're doing. And then there's the MS Force. It's kind of med school's way of saying, hey, we're sorry you had to go through all that. Here, take some elective time. And that's what I'm on right now. Elective time. But yeah, so there's that kind of like high school-esque hierarchy that exists in medical school. But I think the hierarchy is even more prominent when you're in the hospital. Let me explain. Each hospital team is different, but the quintessential hospital team is one attending, which is the board-certified doctor, the head honcho for the patient, the person who has the most responsibility of taking care of someone, the attending. And then right underneath him is the senior resident, which if you're on your internal medicine rotation, it'll be like a second or third year physician who completed medical school and is now doing residency and is on their second or third year. They are the managers of the team. They assign roles, they assign duties, they check boxes, dot I's, cross out T's, whatever, the whole idiom. That's their role. They are the person more or less in charge whenever the attending isn't there. And then you have 1 or 2 interns. Interns are the first year residents. They are the workhorses. They're the ones who put in the orders. They're the ones who check the patients every so often. They're the ones who do the physical exam. They're the ones who write the note. They are the ones slaving away. And then there's everyone else. Everyone else. Think about anyone. The secretary, the staff, the social worker, the mental health counselor, the guy who turns on the lights, the guy who turns off the lights, the distant cousin of the patient. They are on that list. And at the bottom of that list is us, the medical student. I'm just kidding. But anyway, that's the hierarchy that exists in medicine. Why? I think the answer to that is because historically, medicine was taught in a way that's different from what it is right now. It was an apprenticeship type of system where you have the senior doctor who is skilled, learned, and wise, and an apprentice who would sort of worship the ground that this physician would walk on, and that has translated to what we see today. And there are benefits of that kind of system, especially in an emergency. If everyone's pulling and pushing in different ways, someone could get hurt. But if you have someone designated to be the leader of that situation, the most senior person, then yeah, things run a lot more smoothly. There are other aspects to medical culture, not all of them being positive. I think from my experience, it seemed like the more assertive and the more type A personality you are, the more time you're given, which is kind of a bummer. I think the field of medicine needs perspectives from everyone, every color, every economic background, and kind of every personality. So when you have introverts who do really well on an exam, but take a little bit more time to elaborate or take a little bit more time to express themselves in the hospital, then more often than not, they'll kind of be looked over. And that's kind of a bummer. Number 4, it's exhausting. That's something I wish I knew before I started medical school. You're told it's going to be tough, and you're told that the prime years of your life are going to be spent studying in a library, but I think it's really hard to know what that actually means until you're there. It's been exhausting, and it's been really something else. I've come to points during medical school where I was like, is this for me? Some of my best friends got married, and I wasn't able to make it to their weddings. I've missed birthdays, I've missed a lot of stuff, but I'm told it's worth it in the end. And that's why it's so important to develop a sort of support system for yourself. For me, that was a couple of my classmates who I really connected with, and friendships that I made that are going to last, I think, for the entirety of my life. In addition to that, I was lucky enough to have my parents always support me. Actually, I was very lucky. They only lived 20 minutes away, and that meant food whenever I needed it. And last but not least, number 5, you will get through all of it. As close as I was to dropping out of medical school, I'm still here. As much as I've disappointed certain attendings or got chewed out by the deans, I'm still here, and I'm almost done, and so will you. If you're a pre-med student, don't worry, you have time ahead of you, and you will be able to get into medical school. Whether it's here or the Caribbean or something, you will be able to get in somehow. If you're a medical student and you're already there, congratulations. All you need to do is survive, and you will. Just believe in yourself, put your head down, put your nose to the grind, and get through it. Because as I'm told, there's light at the end of this tunnel. But yeah, that's it. Those are 5 things that I wish I knew about medical school.
grades don't matter. Studying is very different. Med school and medicine itself has its own culture, and it can be very exhausting. But most importantly, you'll get through it. All right, so this was my first ever video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what I should do differently. All right then, until next time, take care.